No one saw it coming. In a market dominated by rising prices, failing promises, and EVs that keep getting more expensive, one company just detonated a bombshell that's now echoing across the entire industry. A car priced at just $7,800, and it's not a toy, not a concept, and definitely not a joke. This single move has triggered panic among global automakers, stunned analysts, and forced giants like Tesla, Toyota, and BYD to rethink everything. This is the 7800 Shockwave, and it's about to reshape the future of transportation. It started with a number so low, most analysts dismissed it as a typo. $7,800, a price tag no major automaker has dared to touch in over a decade, especially not for a fully functioning, road-ready electric vehicle. For years, EV prices have followed the same trend, upward. Higher battery costs, higher manufacturing costs, higher markups. Every company justified it. Supply chain, materials, technology. Consumers got used to the idea that electric cars were a luxury, not a right. But then came this car, a model priced so aggressively that it shattered every assumption in the industry. Not a stripped-down, unsafe metal box, not a microcar only usable in narrow streets, a real EV with real features, real performance, and a real impact. The moment the price was announced, shockwaves tore through the automotive world. Stock analysts scrambled, competitors held emergency meetings, and social media exploded with disbelief, because this wasn't just a discount, it was a direct challenge. A challenge to the status quo, to the automotive giants, and to the idea that EV innovation must come with a premium price. This move didn't just break the rules, it rewrote them. When people first heard the price, they expected a box on wheels, something cheap, plastic, and disposable. But the moment the car was revealed, the narrative collapsed. This wasn't a budget experiment. This was a statement. From the outside, the design looks like it belongs to a vehicle costing 3 times more. Sharp aerodynamic lines, a confident front fascia, full-width LED lighting. The kind of styling automakers usually use to justify premium pricing. Not $7,800. The proportions are balanced, the stance is modern, and nothing about it screams entry-level. Even the paint options are surprisingly refined, with metallic finishes that usually cost extra elsewhere. And then you step inside. You expect cheap cloth, old-school buttons, and a dashboard that looks like it came from a decade-old model. Instead, you get an interior that feels intentional. Clean layout, minimalist design, a digital instrument cluster at this price? A center touchscreen that actually responds quickly, not the laggy discount interfaces found in cars double the cost. The seats don't feel like budget foam, the stitching isn't sloppy, and the materials aren't the brittle plastics you'd find in older low-cost cars. Every detail feels like someone refused to accept the idea that affordability must equal ugliness or discomfort. And that's what has designers around the world confused. This car shouldn't look this good, it shouldn't feel this modern, and it absolutely shouldn't deliver this level of design. At $7,800. What it proves is simple. The industry could have built beautiful, accessible EVs years ago, they just chose not to. If the design shocked people, the battery terrified the competition. Because at $7,800, everyone expected the cheapest, most outdated battery tech possible, the kind that barely makes it across town without begging for a charger. But instead, this EV showed up with a battery pack that shouldn't financially exist in this price range. We're talking about a chemistry that's stable, safe, and reliable, not the fragile, short-lived cells many budget EVs are forced to use. And the most shocking part? The range. How does a car this cheap deliver a driving range that rivals vehicles costing 3, 4, even 5 times more? For automakers, the math doesn't add up. Because battery packs are the single most expensive component in any electric vehicle. They're the reason EVs cost more. They're the reason companies claim affordable EVs are impossible. Yet here it is, a battery that charges efficiently, holds its performance, manages heat well, and doesn't cut corners on quality. No ultra-expensive rare materials, no complicated cooling systems, no corporate markup justified by buzzwords. Just a smart, aggressively optimized battery platform that proves something brutal. The EV industry has been overcharging consumers for years. Every major automaker has insisted that affordable EVs aren't viable, that to get decent range, safety, and longevity, prices must remain high. But this one model just blew apart that narrative. It exposes a truth the industry never wanted to face. EVs didn't need to be expensive. Companies just needed a reason to make them cheap. And now that one brand has shown it's possible, the rest of the world has no excuses left. This battery didn't just change the game. It revealed how much the game was rigged. What really pushed this car into impossible territory wasn't just the battery. It was the tech packed inside it. Because at $7,800, most people expected plastic everything, a bare-bones dashboard, and features that felt like they came straight from 2009. But instead, this EV rolled out with a cabin that looked like something lifted from a mid-range luxury car, the kind that normally starts at $30,000 and climbs from there. A full digital display, a clean, modern interface, driver assist tools that other brands charge monthly subscriptions for. Even the infotainment system wasn't the usual sluggish, outdated unit found in cheap cars. It was smooth, responsive, and shockingly intuitive, something industry insiders didn't think a budget EV could pull off without cutting corners somewhere else. And that's what scared the competition, because every automaker has been telling the same story for years. If you want advanced features, you pay premium prices. Consumers accepted that. They got used to it. They believed it. But this car turned that idea into dust. It delivered technology that should have been locked behind paywalls, upgrades, or higher trim levels. And it did it without jacking up the price or hiding fees in the fine print. Automatic safety systems, parking assistance, smart connectivity, comfort features that should have been impossible at this price point. Each one felt like a jab at the entire industry, a reminder that companies could have offered more value all along, but chose not to. And the moment people sat inside this EV, they realized something unsettling. If a $7,800 car can offer this much, why have we been paying so much for so little? But the truth gets even deeper, because the tech wasn't just a gimmick. It was part of a larger strategy that no one saw coming. And what came next made automakers worldwide realize they weren't just competing with a cheap car. They were competing with an entirely new philosophy. The biggest mystery surrounding this car wasn't the battery, the tech, or even the design. It was the question every analyst kept repeating: how did BYD pull this off? Because nothing about this EV looked cheap, nothing felt rushed, nothing hinted at the shortcuts people expected from a car priced lower than most used gasoline vehicles. But behind the scenes, BYD had been building an advantage for over a decade, an advantage that most companies simply couldn't match. First, BYD controlled its own supply chain. Not part of it, not half of it, all of it. From battery chemistry to raw materials to the software running the car, BYD didn't depend on outside suppliers who inflated prices or slowed production. This alone cut costs in ways legacy automakers could never dream of. Then came the manufacturing strategy. While other companies outsourced, split factories, or shipped components across continents, BYD built massive integrated facilities where everything and everyone worked under one roof. Less transport, less waste, less money burned on middlemen. But the real secret weapon was scale. BYD wasn't designing this car for a niche market. They weren't dipping a toe in the water. They were building for millions. And when you manufacture at that level, cost per unit drops so fast it leaves rivals dizzy. Competitors were still debating how to make affordable EVs profitable. Meanwhile, BYD was quietly perfecting a system that made affordable not just possible, but inevitable. And while others hesitated, BYD pushed forward with bold decisions that only a vertically integrated titan could risk. New materials, simplified engineering, and an aggressive pricing model designed to shock the world. It wasn't magic, it wasn't luck, it was strategy. A long game that every other automaker ignored until it was too late. And the moment BYD unveiled a fully loaded EV for $7,800, the industry realized the truth. They weren't just competing with a car. They were competing with an entire ecosystem built to undercut them at every turn. But what BYD did next sent an even stronger message, one that made global automakers realize this wasn't a one-time disruption. It was the beginning of a takeover. The moment the $7,800 price hit the global market, the shock didn't stop at automakers. It shook entire governments. Because this wasn't just BYD making a bold move. This was China executing a long, carefully engineered strategy to dominate the future of transportation. For years, China has been quietly building an EV empire, one subsidy, one factory, and one mining contract at a time. While Western companies argued over pricing models, dealer networks, and software subscriptions, China focused on something far more strategic: total control of the EV supply chain. Batteries, China leads the world in refining critical minerals. Manufacturing, gigantic factories run with efficiency levels legacy automakers can't touch. Exports, ports, logistics, and shipping routes optimized specifically for mass EV distribution. So when BYD dropped a fully featured electric car for the cost of a mid-range smartphone, it wasn't an accident. It was a warning shot. Countries in Europe immediately started sounding the alarm. Some leaders pushed for emergency tariffs. Others hinted at unfair competition. Behind closed doors, automakers begged their governments to do something before Chinese EVs wiped out their entire market share. But that fear wasn't just economic, it was political. Because if China can flood the world with affordable EVs, they don't just dominate the auto market. They influence global energy, technology, and infrastructure for decades. Every $7,800 car sold isn't just a sale, it's a foothold. A presence in foreign streets, a dependency on China's supply chain, a shift in global influence that no Western corporations saw coming. And while competitors scrambled, China kept pushing forward with even bolder moves. Cheaper batteries, faster production, aggressive expansion into Asia, Europe, Africa, and South America. What started as a price shock quickly evolved into something far bigger, a global power play that exposed how unprepared the rest of the world truly was. But the real twist? This wasn't the peak of China's strategy, it was just the beginning. Because what BYD unveiled next made it clear that the $7,800 story was merely a stepping stone towards something even more disruptive. For years, the electric vehicle race was painted as a one-man show. Tesla at the front, everyone else trailing behind. But the second BYD announced a fully featured EV for $7,800, that storyline shattered. Because suddenly, Tesla wasn't competing with another premium car maker. It was colliding with a completely different philosophy. Tesla built its empire on innovation, brand power, and high-performance engineering. BYD built theirs on efficiency, vertical integration, and affordability. Two opposite worlds, heading straight for each other. On one side, you have Tesla, a company focused on cutting-edge tech, AI-driven features, and premium models that aim to redefine the future. On the other, BYD, a company proving that electric cars don't need to be expensive, exclusive, or aspirational. They just need to be everywhere. The moment BYD's price went public, Tesla investors felt the impact. Analysts started asking the uncomfortable question: what happens when good enough becomes the global standard? Tesla's entire strategy was built on pushing the boundaries of EV tech, but BYD just exposed a new battlefield: mass adoption. Not the ultra-high-end, not the niche luxury segment, but the millions of drivers who simply want an affordable, reliable EV that gets the job done. This wasn't about autopilot or 0 to 60 times anymore. It was about scale, and BYD had it. In many parts of the world, Tesla isn't just competing with BYD, it's being outnumbered by them, street by street, city by city, country by country. BYD wasn't trying to match Tesla's performance, they weren't trying to build the fastest EV or the smartest software. They focused on the one thing Tesla hasn't fully mastered: making an EV for the majority, not the minority. And that's where the collision became unavoidable. Because as BYD's market share skyrocketed, Tesla found itself in a strange position. Still the symbol of premium EV innovation, but no longer the automatic leader in global EV dominance. The world realized something new. This wasn't a rivalry of equals. It was two different futures fighting for control. Tesla represented innovation for the top. BYD represented access for the masses. And whichever future wins will reshape the global auto industry for decades. But the real turning point was still ahead, because what BYD did next didn't just challenge Tesla's strategy, it threatened to redefine the entire balance of power. The $7,800 price tag was shocking. The design was stunning. The battery and tech were almost unbelievable. But the most important question isn't about specs, features, or affordability. It's about impact. Because what BYD has unleashed isn't just a car, it's a potential global shift. Until now, electric vehicles were largely a luxury, a dream reserved for the wealthy, the early adopters, or tech enthusiasts. For the majority of the world, EVs were out of reach. People wanted to switch from petrol or diesel, but there was always that question lingering in the back of their minds. Can I really afford it? The BYD Seagull answered that question in one bold move. Affordable, practical, safe, efficient, accessible. It didn't just put an EV within reach, it made owning one a sensible choice for millions of people. For students, families, urban commuters, and middle-class buyers in developing countries, this is more than a car. It's a gateway into the electric future. And the ripple effects are undeniable. Global automakers will be forced to reconsider pricing. Governments may see higher adoption rates and greater incentives for EVs. Fuel consumption patterns, urban planning, and even energy markets could shift as more people opt for clean, affordable electric mobility. Social media already calls it the people's EV, and it's more than a nickname. It represents a cultural shift. EVs aren't a status symbol anymore, they're part of everyday life. This could be the first step of a silent revolution, one that spreads quietly, street by street, country by country, not through flashy launches or billion-dollar marketing campaigns, but through sheer accessibility, practicality, and smart strategy. And that raises the question for everyone watching today. Is the BYD Seagull just a cheap car, or the spark that ignites the global EV transformation? One thing is clear, the era of exclusive, high-cost electric vehicles is ending. The era of mass adoption is beginning. And at the heart of it stands the $7,800 Seagull, small in size, huge in impact.